Welcome everybody here for a special video I'm going to be putting out here on this YouTube channel as I am reacting to my predictions of the Premier League when I did the Premier League predictions on my other YouTube channel. The links will be down below of the description of that video on the other channel of my Premier League predictions of this season. But in this video I'm going to be reacting to which teams finish in which position and what I've got right in predictions at the start of the season to now, and the predictions I've got wrong also as well in the league table, as those will be live on this video. And we're going to start things first down the bottom of the table of the Premier League. I put Ipswich to get relegated in 20th place at the start of the season, because at the time when Ipswich got promoted from the Championship to the Premier League for the first time since 2002, and that was 22 years ago, I really feel that Ipswich will be, let's say, the weaker team out of all the other sides across the Premier League. I didn't really feel that Ipswich had anything to give during the season, but the only thing I got wrong was maybe I've got the relegation right for Ipswich, but I put Ipswich Town in 20th, but they came 19th. And Ipswich, let's say, had a little bit of moments in results as well in the Premier League for the first time in 22 years, but the other established teams in the Premier League, like Wolves and like, Bournemouth, Forest and the other teams, who survived the drop, have, let's say, got more resources comparison to Ipswich Town. Ipswich got the lowest budget team in the Premier League as they got up from the Championship to the Premier League. And I did get them right to be relegated, but I got them wrong, of course, in terms of positioning in 20th place. And we looks like now that Liam Delap, their real top player, who was the major player for Ipswich Town, will be heading now to play for Chelsea for next season. And he was a top player in the Ipswich team during this season. And maybe, hopefully now, that any other Premier League team could even sign him, hopefully, to join their side. And that's probably a big blow for Ipswich to be relegated and also lose their major man, their talisman for Ipswich, Liam Delap, as he'll be heading likely to Chelsea Football Club for next season. But I put Ipswich in 20th place at the start of the season, but at the end of the season, they came 19th. And Southampton I put in 19th position in my predictions at the start of the season, but they finished 20th. I've got them right to be relegated though, these two teams down the bottom, but I got them in the wrong places, as I put Southampton finishing above Ipswich in the Premier League predictions at the start of the season, but they came 20th. They have the worst, almost the worst ever side to play in the Premier League. They only gained 12 points all season, and Southampton were absolutely destroyed by every single team. Luckily, I'm surprised that Southampton managed to break, trying to stop themselves to break Derby's record with 11 points, the lowest ever points in Premier League history, but got up to 12 points instead. And we know that they had a very, very rocky season, losing their manager during Christmas, Russell Martin. They got on this random Slovakian manager, Ivan Juric, in charge. And then he left, and they had a caretaker boss for the last remaining games of the season when Southampton were confirmed as relegated when they actually lost to Tottenham in that game in April. Big blow also for Aaron Ramsdale. Aaron Ramsdale used to play for my team, Arsenal, for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Obviously didn't get any game time at Arsenal. That's why we sold him to play for Southampton. And he's, let's say, been relegated again. It's not the first time he's been relegated as an actually goalkeeper in teams. He got relegated for Bournemouth in COVID. He got relegated for Sheffield United, and he's done that now with Southampton. 3 relegations on his CV for Aaron Ramsdale, and I do feel sorry for him. Only Arsenal, the only team, in fact, he's been to, and he had no problems whatsoever or any worries on us being down there. But yeah, talking about Southampton, almost the worst team in the Premier League of all time. They managed to scrape that by 12 points at the end of the season. And I put them in 19th position at the start of the season, but at the end of the season, in reality, they came 20th of the Premiership. This is a massive, massive shock in terms of what I put Forest to be relegated for this season. And I really thought that at the start of the season, I thought Forest could be in big trouble. I think since last season, Forest managed to survive past Luton only by 5 points clear. And I wouldn't surprise me the most if Nottingham Forest to be anywhere, relegated and play in the Championship with Southampton and Ipswich before the season begun. But they surprised everybody all season. Not just myself included, but everyone. Every football fan was so shocked to see that Nottingham Forest got themselves European football for next season. They'll play UEFA Conference League for next season as they finish 7th in the league. 7th place in the Premier League at the end of the season. But throughout the whole season for Nottingham Forest, they were in the top 4 or the top 5 let's say, and took it to Chelsea at the end of the season to try and get a UEFA Champions League position place for next season. I know that Forest of course won European trophies in the past, back in the 70s under the great Brian Clough, and I think that Nuno Espirito Santo had actually brung that Brian Clough, that spirit back, obviously 30 years later in this new Forest side. And they were the big dark horses in my season. I think in terms of the season so far, the biggest dark horses were Nottingham Forest and Chris Wood as well, especially at the age of 33, 34 years of age, scoring goals after goals after goals, was absolutely massive in terms of Chris Wood. He was in the right position at the right time. When he scored goals for Forest, he was in the right place at the right time to do it and finish the ball into the back of the net. And he did that a few times. And I feel that Forest obviously had him as, let's say, the major favourite striker in the Forest team to try and bag goals left, right and centre. And also Nuno Espirito Santo's side has got European football for next season as they came 7th in the Premier League. But in my predictions at the start of the season, I thought they could be relegated and be in big trouble and join Ipswich and Southampton in 18th place. But I was bloody proven wrong, but at least plus 11 places up to 7th position from where they currently, what I put them at the start of the season. And now I've put Leicester City in 17th place in my predictions at the start of the season. But at the end of the season, I was proven wrong. Proven absolutely wrong that Leicester City are now back in the Championship again. This team won the Premier League a decade ago. The most unlikeliest team to actually be the real underdogs and win the Premier League way back in 2016. But 9 years later, Leicester City have gained 2 consecutive relegations from the Premier League down to the Championship, back from the Championship up to the Premier League and go straight back down. A yo-yo club looks like Leicester City are going into now. The greatest training sessions, the training grounds in the whole of the country. The best training ground facilities they've got. And, Leicester City invests so much money. Won the FA Cup in 2021. Did very well for the last 8 or 7 seasons in the Premiership. Got relegated under Brendan Rodgers, or was it? I think it was Dean Smith who got them relegated in 2023. And then they got back up again under Enzo Maresca. He left to join Chelsea. Steve Cooper was the manager beginning of the season for Leicester at the start of the season. It was Steve Cooper, the former Forest manager who managed Leicester. He got sacked in November. And then Ruud van Nistelrooy, former Manchester United player in his own right and also former United caretaker boss, took over Leicester and they were worse under Ruud van Nistelrooy. Absolutely worse. The greatest highlight Leicester City have done all season is to beat Spurs away from home by 2-1, including Ipswich as well, did the exact same thing. Didn't even mention that in terms of reflecting in this reaction to the Premier League table, but they also did the exact same thing to Spurs also. But that's my major highlight for Leicester, is when they won 2-1 over Spurs way back in January. And luckily Spurs survived. We'll get to that in a minute. But as of for Leicester City in this prediction, I really thought that at the start of the season, I thought they might be the ones could be safe. I thought at the start of the season was financial fair play they'd broken. And apparently there was a lot of rumours before the season begun. They could have actually deducted points during this season. But I was proven wrong, however, and no points weren't deducted whatsoever. The only problem was Leicester City's squad got weaker and weaker and weaker, and now they're going to be even more weaker now because Jamie Vardy is set to leave Leicester at the end of the season now, after 13 service at the football club comes to an end as he leaves after winning the Premier League and also after winning the FA Cup for Leicester. And he's had a, let's say, up and down, let's say, career at Leicester City. Highest was the start of his career for Jamie Vardy, to win the Premier League and win the Championship to get to the Premier League and survive as well, and even winning the FA Cup. And then after that, they went downhill and they went back and forth now from Championship level to the Premier League level. Now the team I predicted to be in 16th place at the start of the season, but however, they came real remarkably, finished 9th position in the Premiership, and that is Bournemouth. And Bournemouth have been, let's say, real proper, let's say, second dark horse team to really punch themselves above their weight up to 9th of the season. And Dodi Ariola down the south coast playing some real, let's say, good style of football in the Bournemouth team. The biggest blow for Bournemouth at the start of the season, they lost their main striker Dominic Solanke, but however they kept themselves together after losing Dominic Solanke and played as, let's say, a real, let's say, underdog team and be the team to be in the top 9 of the Premiership. But it's not the first time that Bournemouth, of course, came 9th in the Premier League, because under Eddie Howe in the 16 and 17 season, they came 9th that season 8 years ago now. And now 8 years later, they've done the exact same thing and finished 9th place in the Premier League and really pushing themselves a real chance for them, hopefully, to be playing in European football for next season. They really gave it a go, Bournemouth. Really pushed themselves very hard to try and qualify for the Conference League or the Europa League. And they were in the top 5, they were, during Christmas. 5th position in the Premiership. And, beating United, beating my team Arsenal as well. Yeah, some great, let's say, big wins, of course, over those top teams. Beat Man City 2-0. Obviously beaten us, I said before, twice this season as well. And Bournemouth really played some real good football, I've got to say, this season. And I was a little bit ashamed that they couldn't get European football. But apart from that, that's still a good position for Bournemouth to be in 9th position. And maybe next season they can keep their players and invest a little bit. Then Bournemouth could be the ones, could really push themselves for a chance to qualify for the European places. The only big blow for Bournemouth, they've lost a defender, Dean Huijsen, who scored that massive winning goal over Arsenal a few weeks back, and now he's going to Real Madrid. A young 20-year-old Dutch defender to actually be the one to be established in Bournemouth's team, and now got this massive move to Real Madrid is a massive big blow for Bournemouth itself. But if they can invest a bit of money during the summer, I think they could really push themselves up to European football. But in my prediction, I put them at the start of the season in 16th place, but in this season, they came 9th. And now the team I predicted in 15th place at the start of the season, but they came 16th at the end of the season, Wolves. And Wolves had a tough season, don't get me wrong. They were the ones, of course, who were in the relegation battle, of course, around Christmas and November time under Gary O'Neill. And even losing to Ipswich by 2 goals to 1 at Molineux Stadium set the tone for Gary O'Neill's dismissal as Wolves coach. And he left the club he has for Wolves in December, and they replaced him with Victor Pereira. And he's played some very good football for Wolves. Let's say that real attacking, high-pressing football that he plays under Wolves this season. And they keep on scoring goals, doing some great bits on the pitch, and had some 4 or 5 consecutive wins in the trot from being in 17th position with 30 points or 27 points or close to where Ipswich are currently at in 17th position and 18th position in March. And then back-to-back wins for Wolves, 5 consecutive victories make them mathematically safe to be playing in the Premier League for next season. The biggest blow I feel that now for Wolves, they're going to lose their striker Chunna. Chunna will be hopefully leaving Wolves. It looks like he's heading to Manchester United, a real, let's say, top striker in terms of Wolves rely on to Chunna. And Chunna was being very, very, very decent in terms of Wolves' hopes of survival. And if you lose him, I feel like Wolves might have to, let's say, really deep in their pockets during the summer and invest in the squad, because I could see Wolves being relegated next season. Not because that Wolves have been in the Premier League now for a couple of seasons, but I do think that Wolves, with their team, in terms of flirting slightly now in that relegation dogfight, I think they have to do some, let's say, investment if they want to try and be the ones to be in the top, way from the relegation places, in the top half of the table, or even in the mid-table positions of the Premiership, or even the bottom half. Anything for safety could happen. But this will be Victor Piera's first full season next season for Wolves, and hopefully he can really invest into the squad, and hopefully Wolves can really put themselves in a very decent position to be the ones to be mathematically, of course, be secured Premier League football for another season, or maybe a chance to play in European football. Maybe if Wolves can really, let's say, get real good investment and really challenge for European football, that'll be decent for Wolverhampton Wanderers. But in my prediction, I put them in 15th position, but in the league table they came 16th in the league, and let's say well done for Wolves to be safe for another season. And now the team that I predicted in 14th place in the Premier League, and unfortunately I did not get this one right at all. Like the other predictions so far, I have not got them right whatsoever at the start. We do go to Everton. Everton, a very emotional day in terms of their stadium, of course. We know that this was their final season to play at Goodison Park, over 130 years playing in that historic stadium for so many years, and now they're going to move to another stadium for next season. And David Moyes came in during the halfway through period of the Premier League, since Sean Dyche was dismissed in January, as Everton were the ones at least 2 points from safety, 2 points of safety for them to be anywhere near the drop where Ipswich was currently at. And that's why that Sean Dyche had to leave Everton. And then David Moyes came in, and he has really steadied the ship for Everton. And he understands Everton quite well, because he used to manage Everton in his first stint for the last 11 years. And let's say a real, popular figure with the Everton supporters. I know he wasn't popular when he left because he went to Man United, but he was popular at Everton. For him to actually had all that longevity as manager for Everton and really keep them in terms of challenging for a 5th position at the table of the Premier League, in 6th position. They were in those positions under David Moyes in that late 2000s, even when I actually watched football at the time at 7 years old. I remember David Moyes was the Everton manager, and he was the one really trying to challenge the top four, the big four, that is Chelsea, Arsenal, United and Liverpool at the time, before City and Spurs were the ones who established top 6 team in terms of now. But I feel that Everton, obviously, with David Moyes, if they can keep him as manager permanently in his first full season, I can see investment in Everton's team. I don't see Everton now be anywhere now in the relegation battles anytime soon. I think that Everton's got a new stadium, they've got the right man in charge, and he might even really give Everton a chance to play in European football. Like what happened to West Ham, he did there. He got them to win the Conference League as manager for West Ham United. He might do the exact same thing and make Everton to a team challenging in that top half of the table for next season, because if he can invest the right money in the summer, we might see a better Everton comparison to the last 4 or 5 seasons under managers like Rafa Benitez, Frank Lampard, Sean Dyche, and etc., who've been managers before him, and to be the ones who avoid and flirt with relegation to a manager now who understands Everton and have a new stadium also intact, it might give them a real, let's say, stead for them to be in the Premier League even more longer, hopefully, for next season. But yeah, I got it wrong though by 1 position though, but I put them in the start of the season in 14th position, but at the end of the season in the Premier League they finished in 13th position in the league for Everton. And now the team that I predicted at the start of the season in 13th place, and I got this one wrong by at least 3 places, Brentford in 13th that I predicted. And Brentford, let's say, had a real, bad start to the season for them to actually lose their main striker, the major talisman. Ivan Toney left Brentford to join Saudi Arabia, and that was a massive blow, of course, for Brentford to lose a player like him. I know that obviously he wasn't popular with the Brentford supporters in terms of, let's say a little bit of politics back behind the scenes in the dressing room. There's a lot of, things that happened between Thomas Frank and also Ivan Toney in terms of their relationship, of course, and it really fell apart for those two, and that's why Ivan Toney obviously went for a transfer to go to Saudi Arabia. A big, let's say, blow in terms of his quality. He could have gone to somewhere in Europe maybe and make a name for himself for other teams apart from going to Saudi Arabia, because that was for the money really, rather than the football. And there's a lot of discussions about in terms of the players' loyalty, in terms of playing for trophies or playing for money. And he chose to go for the money at Saudi Arabia when he obviously left at the start of the season. But talk about Brentford again. They really, adapted very quickly since Ivan Toney decided to leave Brentford at the start of the season. You know, having Brian Bremo as well had some very, good chances of him to carry the team. Also, you've got as well in the team, we got obviously Josh Da Silva. You've got Wissa as well, fulfilled the boots for Ivan Toney as well. And the whole Brentford team, really real core they were in terms of, really believe themselves. They can, push themselves to be anywhere closer to have a chance on playing maybe European football for this season. They only came short now, but at least by 2 places they missed by to get European football for next season. But it'd be great if Brentford actually get European football ever since they've been in the Premier League now for the last 4 seasons. But they are improving in terms of their team, in terms of losing players like Ivan Toney, and Brentford and even Brighton as well know how to adapt and what scouting network they need to have to try and strengthen their squad after losing a major striker who actually brought Brentford back in the Premier League way back in 2021. So I'd say fair play to them as a football team to finish in 10th position, and maybe next season they can try and invest into the squad and really try and be anywhere closer to qualify for a European place for next season. But yeah, big, congratulations for Brentford to really, deal with, of adapting to a change of losing a major striker like Ivan Toney at the beginning of the Premiership season. And now the team that I put in 11th position at the start of the season, but however, I was only 3 places off for Brighton to be with exactly where they were for this season, and they came 8th in the league. And Brighton, of course, had, a very steady season. I thought that at the start of the season they're going to be very steady this season in terms of nowhere near anywhere worse than them being in the top half of the table. I thought there's a lot of teams above Brighton will be a lot better comparison to them. But for them to actually be the ones to come obviously 8th in the league and almost got a chance of playing again another place in European football for next season, that was still a good season, though, for them to be in the top 8. And we know that obviously their scouting network for Brighton has been absolutely successful for the last few years now, since being a Premiership side. You know, having Matoma in the Brighton team. You got João Pedro. You also got as well the experienced James Milner, who plays for Brighton. You also got the experienced Danny Welbeck. And also you got, a real collab of very good players in this team. And they really push themselves very nicely up the table in 8th place. And if Chelsea would have lost that Conference League final against Real Betis, then it would be Brighton who could have actually had a slot to play in the UEFA Conference League. Still a good competition to play for in the standards of Brighton Football Club. I don't think they would have been anywhere near playing in the UEFA Champions League. I think it's a little bit more demanding, for Brighton to be anywhere in that. But in terms of them to be having a good run in the Europa League, and that will be decent. And they could have done that almost this season, but they only missed out on that by at least one position. And even in my prediction from the start of the season, I was only 3 places off from when they were during in this season anyways. But yeah, good season for Brighton, and also good season in the first season for the manager for Brighton, Fabian Hertzer. So yeah, Brighton did come 8th, and very, very good season for them at the end of the season. And now the team that I put in 11th position at the start of the season, but however, I was only 3 places off for Brighton to be with exactly where they were for this season, and they came 8th in the league. And Brighton, of course, had, let's say, a very, very steady season. I thought that at the start of the season they're going to be very steady this season in terms of nowhere near anywhere worse than them being in the top half of the table. I thought there's a lot of teams above Brighton will be a lot better comparison to them. But for them to actually be the ones to come, obviously, 8th in the league and almost got a chance of playing again another place in European football for next season, that was still a good season, though, for them to be in the top 8. And we know that, obviously, their scouting network for Brighton has been absolutely successful for the last few years now, since being a Premiership side. You know, having Matoma in the Brighton team. You got João Pedro. You also got, as well, the experienced James Milner, who plays for Brighton. You also got the experienced Danny Welbeck. And also you got, let's say, a real collab of very good players in this team. And they really push themselves very, very nicely up the table in 8th place. And if Chelsea would have lost that Conference League final against Real Betis, then it will be Brighton could have actually had a slot to play in the UEFA Conference League. Still a good competition to play for in the standards of Brighton Football Club. I don't think they would have been anywhere near playing in the UEFA Champions League. I think it's a little bit more demanding, I think, for Brighton to be anywhere in that. But in terms of them to be having a good run in the Europa League, and that will be decent. And they could have done that almost this season, but they only missed out on that by at least one position. And even in my prediction from the start of the season, I was only 3 places off from when they were during in this season anyways. But yeah, good season for Brighton, and also good season in the first season for the manager for Brighton, Fabian Hertzer. So yeah, Brighton did come 8th, and very, very good season for them at the end of the season for the 2015 and 24. The team that I predicted to come 10th for the start of the season, but unfortunately I got this one wrong as well. I've got all the teams wrong so far, as West Ham came 14th in the Premiership after the end of the season from last week. And West Ham, they've had, let's say, their moment, been average. They've had average in the bottom half of the table. They had their moments of, you know, stopping us from have a chance on going and chase on Liverpool for the Premier League title by a loss to West Ham way back in February. And for them to be also losing their manager during the halfway through period of Julian Lopetegui. I didn't think that he was very popular with the West Ham supporters, and that's why he was given the sack as manager for West Ham United. Then Graham Potter took over as manager. He hasn't really done much personally for West Ham since he's taken over from Julian Lopetegui. I think the downgrade now for West Ham is that they've lost David Moyes during last season. He left West Ham at the end of that season, and then they had Julian Lopetegui and also Graham Potter. They haven't had a good season. They've had it, let's say, average, and I don't think they will be worse than be anywhere in the relegation drop, because I think there was a lot of worse teams below them than West Ham. But I feel that West Ham had, let's say, a little bit of unpopular relationship with the manager previously with Julian Lopetegui, and trying to grieve as well after losing David Moyes after winning them the Conference League way back in 2023. So in a way, they've had, let's say, their moments, their chances this season. Not anything promising apart from stopping us from the winning the Premier League title, as I said that before. But apart from that, they had a very, let's say, average, poorish season. So yeah, I was wrong on that by at least 4 places down into 14th, as I put them in 10th position at the start of the season, but at the end of the season, they came 14th. And the team finished in 9th position I predicted at the start of the season was Crystal Palace. I got this one wrong also, like the other teams I predicted at the beginning of the season. I put Palace in 9th, but they came 12th in the Premier League. But the huge thing that Palace have done this season is to win the FA Cup against Man City a few weeks back. And they'll play in the UEFA Europa League for next season after winning their first ever domestic cup trophy in their football club's history. And I've got to say that Oliver Grajnia has, let's say, done it really remarkably, of course, and get a good FA Cup run all the way to the final and somehow beat Man City to win that trophy was absolutely astonishing for Palace. Leicester City were the last team of the smaller sides away from the Big Six, won the FA Cup in 2021, 4 years ago. And then 4 years later, another smaller team in the Premiership has won the FA Cup for this season. And Oliver Grajnia, of course, will probably invest a lot more in terms of the players and the squad for next season. And they definitely probably will do. And maybe could SA stay at Palace after links of other clubs might want to buy him for next season. That could be a massive talking point for Eze about his future as a Palace player. But overall, I think he probably might think to himself that I probably want to stay at Palace because due to the fact that we have got Europa League football for the first time in our football club's history as well. And that would be great for him to get some European football under the floodlights, of course, on Thursday nights for Palace, as since they've been a Premier League team now for the last 13 years, they've never, ever been in the European positions. Throughout that time, since being promoted in 2013, they've always been that bottom half team. Even now they've been a bottom half team, but the FA Cup has saved them in terms of them to get themselves a chance to really have a good run in the European competitions going into for next season. I can't wait how Palace will do for next season in terms of that race, of course, for European football, but I can't wait to see how they'll invest in the summer. So, in 12th position was Palace during this season. By my prediction, I have put Palace in 9th, and I've got that one wrong by at least 3 places. Now the team that I put in 8th position at the beginning of the Premier League, Aston Villa. And I thought, since Villa are now playing Champions League football during the season, I thought that Villa might miss out on a chance on being very consistent and get another top 4 finish to play in the Champions League for a following season. That's why I put Villa in 8th place. But during the season, Villa got themselves into a quarter-finals of the Champions League and lost to PSG, got to the semi-finals and lost to Palace, who won the FA Cup from a few weeks ago. And also as well, they almost got into the top 5 of the Champions League places, since that extra spot has been now given to the English teams due to the fact that our performances in terms of Arsenal, in fact, to get to the last 4, has now put a place for a 5th position team to qualify for the Champions League, instead getting themselves in the Europa League. So, in a way for Villa, they almost got there at the end of the season. They had a match with Man United from past Sunday, and obviously there was a red card from the goalkeeper, Emiliano Martinez, and I know that was a massive blow for Villa in fact. And even Unai Emery was very, let's say, heated in the dugout, and even having to go at the referees in terms of he felt, and even Aston Villa's board and also the whole club behind the scenes reported the refereeing to the Premier League as well, as that cost them a chance to play in the Champions League for a 2nd consecutive season and gave that place to Newcastle instead. But in terms of the positioning, I put them in 8th at the beginning of the Premier League season, but they came 2 positions better in 6th place. And that was a decent position to be at, I've got to say, for Aston Villa in terms of their quality and in terms of maybe maybe a chance they could really do it next season to try and play for this, hopefully, and qualify for this, because Unai Emery also is a mastermind in the Europa League. He's won the Europa League for Sevilla 3 times. He's won it for Villarreal. He got us, Arsenal, when he managed Arsenal 6 years ago, into the Europa League final and lost to Chelsea. And he could do the exact same thing for Aston Villa and go all the way to the Europa League final for next season and win the trophy, for a chance for them to put themselves through into the Champions League for a following season, if they can do that, however. So I won't say Aston Villa will take this very personally in terms of their chances on winning the Europa League. It's probably a lot better for them in terms of the standards of a football club to try and just win the Europa League and do something from that competition to get themselves back into the Champions League, rather than go to the Champions League and they won't be favourites, of course, to go and win the whole entire thing, because Aston Villa is playing as the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Bayern Munich, and the real top class European teams. And I wouldn't think that Villa would probably handle those sides. So I think it's a very, very good position, in my opinion, for Villa to get a Europa League place instead, rather than 5th position place for next season. So best of luck for Villa for next season. Hopefully more additions and signings for them, maybe, to strengthen for a chance to be in that top 5 or 4 by next season. What a reaction to see Spurs finished 17th during this season. I put Spurs in 7th position at the start of the season, and they had a very, very poor season. 21 losses. But the Spurs fans say, this is a very good season for us because we won the Europa League. This is our best season of all time. We finally won a trophy. You won a BTEC trophy. A BTEC plastic trophy to guarantee you Champions League football. In fact, that competition is a joke now in the Europa League. There's no top teams in that anymore. You probably get at least 3 or 4 top teams playing that competition. And those 3 or 4 teams will probably, or 2 teams at least, will be the favourites to go and win the whole Europa League to play in the Champions League for next season. But Spurs have got the cheek to say that we are Europa League winners, yay! But you've lost 21 games of the season, and you wouldn't be saying that right now if you lost that final over United. And you got the cheek to say that we won more than Arsenal, we won more than Arsenal. In fact, we won the Cup Winners' Cup in 1994. We won the Premier League. We also won as well the FA Cup, and we also won as well a chance to play in the Champions League every single year. We haven't won the Champions League, however, but every year we in it, more than Spurs have. And Spurs got the cheek to say that we're in the Champions League, we're in the Champions League, and that's Spurs for you. And talking about this season with Tottenham, even Spurs fans protesting, saying they want Ange Postecoglou to leave. They even said that they want Daniel Levy to leave. They even want, new directions of football club, Spurs. And they have a U-turn and say that, oh, this is a great season, this is, of course. This is an unbelievable season. And I've got a feeling now, Ange Postecoglou will stay, because I think that Daniel Levy is clueless. I think he'll keep him in for another season. He'll get sacked, I think, by probably September. Because I reckon Spurs will be in the exact same position as they are now. A lot worse than 17th position. I think that Spurs might be in the relegation zone, maybe, in the first 3 or 4 games. And I think then a panic button will be pressed, and then Ange Postecoglou will be sacked, and things for Spurs will be forgotten after when Ange gets sacked, and when the Spurs fans start to turn on him. But at least you won something, though. At least it's a long time you've won something. It's about time you have done something, right? But you haven't won the Champions League, though, so you can't say anything. But there you go. That's Spurs for you. And the team that I predicted in 6th place at the start of the season, but they finished 15th place in the Premiership, and that is Manchester United. This is another team. Worse. The worst finish that United have ever positioned themselves throughout the whole Premier League era. Look at the likes of Ferguson, winning 13 Premier League titles, challenging every year at the top. And then the wheels fell off when he left. Managers come and go. Different squads. They can't rotate. And they're in a real mess there, United. A real mess. And we talk about the start of the season. Ten Hag won the FA Cup the season before. Got another season on his contract to stay for another year or couple seasons. And then, however, things weren't working out for him. He obviously picked up a few losses, maybe 2 or 4 wins, draws. They were down to 14th. They were in the Premier League when Ten Hag was sacked after losing 2-0 to West Ham way back in October. I know obviously Ten Hag now manager for Leverkusen now, but in terms of his role during that start of that season was poor for United. Absolute mess for them. And then they got in Ruben Amorim in charge. Leaving Sporting Lisbon, the club that actually made him as their, let's say, a real top-class manager. And a lot of, European teams wanted Ruben Amorim in charge for their football club. But he decided to go to Manchester United and be their manager. And, they're a lot worse, I think, under Ruben Amorim. A lot worse. Worse than Ten Hag, in my opinion. Because they've been, this season, losing at home a few times. Losing to Newcastle stupidly. Losing to Bournemouth as well was another big blow for them. And they got themselves into the Europa League final. But they lost to Spurs. And that's going to affect them now in terms of the financial side of things. Because even Jim Ratcliffe had to obviously get rid of workers at Man United behind the scenes and sack them in terms of, let's say, the finances. I could see United now are in financially big trouble now. And even United now got ideas about making a new stadium for themselves and leave Old Trafford. But the stadium's falling apart. Jim Ratcliffe's getting all these ideas and saying that United's going to be the best if you cut off the wages off of the employees at Man United. And even cutting off players now, like Luke Shaw might be leaving during, obviously, in the summer. Bruno could be leaving in the summer. Garnacho is highly likely now be leaving Man United as well. And these players are good players, don't get me wrong. These are good players, top players. But I think that culturally, things have gone very, very wrong at Man United, I think, in my opinion. And the culture's been like that now for the last 13 years now, since Ferguson left. And this is a real deep level that United have actually now became that team to finish in the bottom half of the table for the first time in the last 34, 35 seasons as the Premier League was formed in 1992. And they've got to get a massive clear out now because they're in big trouble to be now anywhere probably in a relegation dogfight again. Not a relegation dogfight that could be there if teams down below who got promoted get strengthened. They might be down that mix to be in big trouble for next season. So hopefully Ruben Amorim might get it right and bring his players in from Sporting and take out the players that he doesn't want, of course, for the United team, to create a good culture, to be the ones to try and challenge maybe in the top 6 or top 5 or top 4 for next season for Man United. So yeah, big blow for them. The worst season for them during this campaign. And I can't wait to see how Man United can really respond to this now after losing that Europa League final and finished in 15th place in the Premiership. I finally got a team exactly right. At the beginning of the Premier League season, I put Newcastle in 5th place. But at the end of the season, they came in the exact same position in 5th place in the Premiership. And what a season for Eddie Howe's team. They won the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool. They got Champions League football for next season. And now I've got finally a team right in the right position in my predictions or my reactions at the ending of the season. I've got to say Newcastle have been brilliant in terms of, let's say, really deal with, let's say, injury problems, of course. Some of the players were injured, a few of them, in the Newcastle team, and Newcastle around 8th, 9th position. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to thought that Newcastle probably won't be anywhere in the top 5 or even any European places. Maybe in 8th, 9th position people predicted, but Newcastle were very, very good. Even Alexander Isak, if you keep him fit, if he stays for Newcastle, he'll do things proper and score 30 goals a season, because he's been decent for them. And a Carabao Cup trophy. What do you say about that, Newcastle? For the first time in 70 years, you finally won a trophy. And I think they should be very, very proud. They should be, now that they've actually got UEFA Champions League football. But next season also, the return of the Tyre-Wear derby between Sunderland and Newcastle will come back to life again in the Premiership, since Sunderland also got promoted in the Premier League as well. That'll be something also that Newcastle look forward to now, is that game, and also the UEFA Champions League, also for the second time in the last 2-3 seasons. They've got themselves back-to-back Champions Leagues now, and that will really help Newcastle now as a stable stability side to try and challenge maybe in the top of the table of the league. And 5th place I predicted at the start of the season, and I've got this one exactly right in 5th place. And the second team I predicted to be in 4th position at the start of the season, at the end of the season, I've got Chelsea exactly right in 4th place in the league. And I've got to say, Chelsea did very, very well to win themselves the UEFA Conference League from last night, to beat Real Betis by 4-1. Got themselves in the top 4 after beating Nottingham Forest on Sunday to qualify for the UEFA Champions League for the first time in the last 2 seasons. They missed out, of course, on Champions League football. And now, obviously, they in a very, very good position now to kick on now and try and invest in the summer to make Chelsea a lot stronger for next season, to try and challenge maybe with Liverpool and us maybe for the Premier League. Who knows on that? And even Chelsea during the season were very, very strong. They were in some point in the season. They were second. They were when they beat Spurs way back during December time. They were second place, and they were above us. They were 1 point of the season. But then Chelsea had their moments of wins and losses as well, and they were like really fighting to try and be in that top 5 or 4 to qualify for the next season. They've been there and in and outs, of course, during that time, and they finally got there at the end. And now Chelsea can kick on now next season under Enzo Maresca's second season as manager to try and do one step better and maybe challenge the league, maybe. And Cole Palmer in his 3rd season as a Chelsea player could do it. He might do, in terms of his ability to be, let's say, a real confident young player and be a more, let's say, that key role player as a major talisman for next season to kick on Chelsea to be in the right position now for the first time since 2023. And that is my prediction right there from the beginning of the season to now, that I've got Chelsea right and I've got Newcastle right in exact right positions of the Premiership. And the team that I currently predicted at the start of the season until now, I put Liverpool, and unfortunately I could not get this position right for Liverpool, unfortunately, so because Liverpool went all the way and won the Premier League title under Arne Slot, the manager who took over from Jurgen Klopp from last season, as Klopp left last season, and he left that Liverpool team with Arne Slot for the following season. And in fact, leaving that squad is probably a very good thing for Slot. Did not invest any money during the transfer market, of course, in the summer. Very smart, I've got to say, from Slot, not to buy any players, apart from one player they've signed, obviously, Francesco Chiesa, they've signed on loan, though, from Juventus. But apart from that, obviously, they kept the squad as it is, and they did what they had to do throughout the whole season, as to be very consistent every game. They've done that, home and away, and they've got themselves that Premier League title. And obviously my sad condolences also goes to the Liverpool fans as well on what happened, of course, on Monday when some idiot tried to actually run innocent people over. And even Liverpool obviously could not celebrate properly the Premier League title in 2020 under Klopp because COVID begun and COVID made restrictions for celebrations. And I feel I don't blame, obviously, Liverpool fans to really have a very good time, of course, on Monday and celebrate with the players on the bus to be champions of this division. And they did deserve that nicely. Next season, I feel that losing Trent Alexander-Arnold, only one player they've lost now to go and join Real Madrid for him, as he'll be going now, leaving his boyhood club to go and join Real Madrid. But Slot has kept Salah now for 2 seasons, and he'll now definitely keep as well Virgil van Dijk for another 2 seasons, as those 2 players have extended their contract to be a part of the Liverpool team for another 2 seasons. Will these players of Van Dijk and Mo Salah do it again next season and be as, let's say, stronger as they have done this season and be as, let's say, be as they have been for the last 8 seasons now? Because they're getting a bit older now, Van Dijk and Salah now, in their 30s now. And will their pace might get slower for them 2 players? Who knows on that? But good call for them to give them the contracts as well for next season. And also a big loss for them to lose Trent for Real Madrid. And we'll see if Liverpool could do it again for next season. And the team that I predicted to miss out on winning the Premier League title at the start of the season in August, when I predicted these predictions, I put Man City in 2nd place in the Premiership. And I was right a little bit about Man City though, because Man City did not win the league again. And I was right about that during, obviously, the start of this Premier League campaign. But I thought that Man City, obviously, with Pep Guardiola now, have not got a proper managerial rivalry of Klopp anymore. And I feel that the heels are now dropping a little bit in terms of Pep Guardiola as manager, in terms of his decline as a coach now. I think a lot of now clubs now have got ideas to do things a lot better now in comparison to how Pep does things now. And he's now been currently at Man City now for the last almost 10 years now as manager for the football club. So in a way for Man City, I can see a massive decline for them in terms of their team. And they did it all season. You know, Erling Haaland was out injured during March time. And even as well, losing in the FA Cup final over Palace and win themselves their first ever major trophy. Also got knocked out in the UEFA Champions League knockout playoffs way back in February as well. And also got knocked out in the Carabao Cup in the early phases of that competition. Was not good for Pep Guardiola as well during this season. So I really felt that Man City were not themselves for the first time ever, in my opinion. I've never seen Pep Guardiola been so down at all when he's been manager now for City. He's been absolutely on top every single year, but this is the season now that Pep Guardiola feels so down he does. I think he hasn't been himself whatsoever, I don't personally think, of the touchline. Very, very, let's say, tired I think he looks. And I won't be surprised now if Pep Guardiola sets himself to leave as manager for Man City, hopefully so, by next season. I don't think they'll sack him this season due to the fact that Man City have got the FIFA Club World Cup to play for in a couple of weeks from now. But I think next season, in his 10th year as manager for Man City, I think that he will end up resigning as manager by the end of next season. And I can see that Man City now have not been themselves, especially losing Kevin De Bruyne as well, as he'll be leaving now to join another team during the summer, as he's getting a little bit older now. He's really getting on now, Kevin De Bruyne, and I don't really think now Pep Guardiola's got that patience anymore as he used to try and make another team out of City now, since losing De Bruyne, and also a few other players might be joining him as well during the summer as well. So big blow for City not to win anything this season for the first time since Pep was in charge. Never in a whole season Pep Guardiola has actually went for a whole season without winning anything, and he's done that for the first time ever in his managerial career. And he didn't do that at Bayern, he didn't do that at Barcelona, but he has done that now at Man City. And very, very, very wheels are being fallen off now for Man City. And I don't know how it will happen next season if he can invest into the next team, hopefully, to try and challenge for the Premier League title. But that was my prediction at the start of the season. Second place. But during this season, they qualified for the Champions League, but they finished in third place. What really happened to Arsenal during the whole season? I thought, when I predicted the whole predictions right there on the screen, I thought Arsenal will go on and win the Premiership title. I had massive confidence that we can go and win the whole thing. We had some great additions in the summer last year, like Mikel Merino. He's been doing so good this season, Mikel Merino. He's been absolutely good in terms of that midfield. He's like a striker for us in a way, because he's scored quite a few goals from Arsenal due to the fact that we've signed him from Real Sociedad. He's been a real, let's say, proper player in terms of being involved in terms of our goals this season. And also signing Calafiori as well. Another great signing also from Bologna. Great signing we had from him to join Arsenal as well. David Raya, second season, or his first season as a permanent signing from Arsenal, from Brentford, when we had him on loan from last season. He's a world-class goalkeeper, and he made some very good saves throughout the whole campaign, especially in that Champions League game against Atalanta, when he saved the penalty, not once, but twice, from a rebound again. And he will be hopefully a real top-class goalkeeper for next season. I think our problem throughout this whole season was we've dropped so many points. And we've drawn 13 games totally all season. And that's why Liverpool won the league, because we dropped points of loads of games. We've dropped points to silly games, really. We should have won on paper, like Forest, for example. We've drawn that game at the City ground. We lost to Bournemouth twice this season. We did well against, obviously, Man City to actually win 5-1 at the Emirates, and even drawn, 2-2 at the Etihad Stadium at the start of the season. You know, got a good record over Tottenham, as always. And we were very, let's say, consistent against the top 6 sides in the Premiership. But when it came down to, let's say, the smaller teams in the Premier League, like Brighton or Bournemouth, I said before, and Brentford as well, we dropped points. That's why we are where we are now, of course. Second place. And that's why we couldn't win the Premiership, because of for that exact reason I just said there. And I think that next season, I feel that if we've got to go and win the league next season, we need a striker, because we always rely on Kai Havertz, rely on him so much as our major striker in the team. Even Mikel Merino as well. We even rely on him as a striker sometimes for Arsenal, but he's a midfielder rather than a striker himself. And also Gabriel Jesus, he's had good form this season, but he can't do it all by himself. Although he's had, let's say, his ups and downs this season, but at the same time, he's really bagged some goals as well for our side. But we need a number 9. We need another number 9. We need another striker to help Jesus out and Havertz out in that attack, if we've got any hopes on winning the Premiership title next season. If we don't get any top-class striker in the summer, I don't think we'll win anything next season. If we do get a top-class striker, then we definitely will win something. And I think the Premier League will be a real ice on the cake, I think, for us to go and win it for next season in 2026. And that's all from us here of my reaction to the Premier League predictions that I have done from the start of the season until now. I only got exactly 2 teams right to finish in the exact right positions that I predicted at the beginning of the Premier League, and that is Chelsea in 4th place and Newcastle in 5th place. And I got those 2 teams exactly right in this season. And in the 2024 and 2025 season, I got 2 out of 20 in terms of got right in terms of my prediction for this season of the Premier League. I got really bad. I really predicted it worse comparison to last season. I had 6 teams right last season. 6 teams that I got exactly right to finish in the exact right positions that I thought would be at the start of that season. But this season, I declined by at least 2 I've got right all season, and that is Chelsea and Newcastle. And those 2 teams, congratulations to those 2 teams especially, as they'll be playing UEFA Champions League for next season. And that's all we have time for here of all of us in terms of my reaction to the Premier League here on TGI Football. If you want more of this content, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching here on TGI Football. Peace out.